Well, Mark, I truly want to thank you. I think this is, more comprehensive alternatives and kind of what I think the community's looking for, we're looking for as we move forward. So appreciate the hard work that you and your team put together and presentation for tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Another question for Mark?
Well, I guess it would be
Go ahead.
in looking at the possibility that this could benefit us by living on the old high school purpose, as far as bids, et cetera, as far as the total project versus being two separate projects, would this not also need to be known from a funding standpoint and a bond issuing, and what would be most beneficial there also?
Right, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the 14.275, you're adding that almost $15 million to a $55 million project. Now you're looking at 70 million, depending on what you want to do with it. I mean, that's the high end.
Right.
So, I mean, we already had planned that we were going to do two separate borrowings, two separate bonds, one in 2013, one in 2014. Now, this year we had planned on doing 35, or 33. That might turn into 35, and we might, depending on what the board's desire is for the old building, borrow another 35 million next year.
So some of those things we need to also be looking at and thinking about at the same time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
How much would that estimate of the tax increase over
That would definitely affect the,
another,
because that's taking out more than the scoop loan, and it's going to have a whole lot more effect up front those first couple of years. Because we don't have that kind of cash that we can make those first three years payments without impacting the tax bill.
Yes.
So just to clarify, that's, depending how you look at it, worst case or best case scenario, depending on your view, of spending up to the high end of 14,275,000. So there could be 7 million, 5 million, 1 million, depending on which use we use.
Correct.
Okay. So,
and it's also estimating that the funding that comes from the school district.
correct.
Ron, I guess you have, okay.
Yeah.
Ron, I guess you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, about the funding, what if, I guess this would be worst case scenario, what if the state doesn't give us their reimbursement for like 7 years down the road? Because there were some individuals that went to a workshop and they met some people from school districts where they were waiting 7 years and still, I guess, 6 years and still hadn't received it. What could that add? Well, I mean, this isn't the budgetary meeting, so you probably can't tell me at this point. But I just thought of that when we were going into the finances.
Donnie? Anyone? Joe?
I have to apologize, I wasn't here last week. But according to the figures I got that were given to me by the administration, the population in the school district is pretty constant through 12 years. Is that not so? The numbers are all under 600, correct? For each grade. Well, you know they are, okay, anyway. I just can't, I gotta tell you, I cannot see this project. I don't know why we're doing this. I think it's insane. I will not support it. I just don't get it. I don't know. I call it the Boyertown boondoggle myself. That's what I call it. I think this is insane. And I will not support it. If I thought the kids were going to get anything more than they're getting now, I'd think about it. You got the report from York. People went out there and they talked to the people out there that were doing the academies, and they told us themselves that the academy approach didn't improve their scores at all. And their scores out in York are worse than ours. They're not better. So I just don't get it. I positively, this makes me sick listening to them. We're just selling our people down the stream we have no money for this. You know, just because you people, you know, I don't know, but I'm just telling you, I think this is what I call it, a Boyertown boondoggle. I think it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
I guess I'd like to ask Mark about the feasibility study and the demographics about the population growth, as to what that did show for the district over the next 12 years.
I would have to come back and report on that. I
You
just
don't have that with you?
I don't.
Because I was looking through mine to see if I had mine there.
But I certainly look at where we were when we did the study and look at your enrollment projections now with the administration and put together a report and come back and show you where you are based on what the Pell projections were and what the Department of Education projected. And we didn't specifically do enrollment projections. We gathered that together in the study, but you had independent projections done by the Pennsylvania Economy League, and there's also projections done by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I don't have that file with me tonight, but like I said, I would be more than willing to put all that information together, along with the administration's help, and do a presentation. I can get your latest numbers, and we could put it together and present.
Well, I do know that, like, just from we had the feasibility study done in 2001, and what they said had happened in 2010, and we have 156 more students at the high school than were projected at that time. So, I guess that would be what's the projection going forward? And by us moving the 9th grade to the high school and freeing up then an entire level at the elementary grades, we'll only have K to 5. And, remembering that we're also relieving, because of the fact that our schools, only certain elementary schools are overpopulated in the district, not every one. Because if you take the projection from 2001 to 2010 or 11, there are actually 20 students under what was projected at that time. So it's only where we have 2 schools located that were overly crowded. So I guess those would be some of my questions in looking at that to address Mr. Nichols' issues.
Yes. Steve?
Well, and Joe, I appreciate your comments, and as I recall, you weren't on the board when we went through the feasibility study. I do have the information. I carry it with me whenever I can, all these books, but the Pennsylvania Economy League, total enrollment in the district in the year 2000 was about 6,730, as best I can tell from this graph. Today, in 2012, 2013, we're closer to 7,200. So that's about a 500 increase in student enrollment in those 12 years. The projection moving forward from 2013 to 2020 continues to climb. Projection looks like about 7,450. And so I'll be glad to share this with you. The elementary school, again, goes up slightly. Junior high seems to stay about the same. The high school definitely goes up on all these projections. So that's basically, this, and there was the other study, Mark, you just alluded to it. PDE, and both projections are for continued growth in the district. If you look at the plans that are on the books right now for New Hanover Township in particular, there's tremendous growth projected in housing, number of units, and families moving in. And the interesting thing that we also realized, even with the recession and the economic downturn the last 5 years, we've continued, and I don't recall the exact number, but even over the last 3 years, we've continued to see new housing in the district. For some reason, I'm recalling like 100 new houses a year or something. Even in obvious horrendous economy, and all indications are that economy is starting to turn around, so.
Well, the need I see is an elementary at this time. And we could be adding 2 rooms to Boyertown and solving that problem. Instead of going ahead with something like this, which now may be 70 million, I don't know why we're not looking at Boyertown. But again, you can say I wasn't at the last meeting or whatever you want to say, but I do pay attention to what's going on. You know, with the foreclosures and the bankruptcies and the people that don't have jobs and all the other stuff, and I just don't know how anybody figured that. You may be able to figure how many rooms we need, but you're not gonna figure out how who's gonna pay for it. You know, and it's not gonna work like that. I respect you folks and your opinions, and I expect you to listen to mine too. Thank you.
I just have one question. I'm sure Dave gave it to us before, but when you figured what it would cost millage-wise for this project per year, did you take the additional cost to run the building?
No.
So,
No, the 1/10 of a mil per year for 3 years was just for the debt service.
right, so I think the board should know, unless you did give it to us and I'm not getting it there, what it's gonna cost actually to run that building, because those are all costs that we're gonna have every year after year after year.
Right, and we did talk about that because we said that when the 600 new kids show up and the 100 houses a year for 10 years, that's gonna increase the assessments of our school district. And we said that we're gonna need new teachers to teach the kids anyway. The problem is we're not gonna have a room to give them. And that's what we're trying to do with this project, is to release those rooms by moving the 6th graders to middle school.
Well, I'll hold that comment. I still don't understand the room utilization chart I got, but that's another whole story. I think we have some room to get teachers.
Mr. Crosby.
Yes.
Speaking of what Dave was saying, I think, didn't we figure that every new home generates like 8 cents for the student? Is that the number?
Approximately.
And they cost us, what, 13,000 a student? What's our costing out per student here?
About
Total.
12.7.
Okay, and what does a house generate in tax average?
2,500, 3,000.
Yeah, so, do the math. It doesn't work.
Any other comments?
I think that's what we're discussing right now. And, I mean, Dr. Russo, do you want to go over the committee structure?
Well, that's just a suggestion for discussion by the committee here. That's, we drafted something up Thursday, and this is just something that the facilities committee can consider to determine what the use of the building is and will be. You know, we suggested what the committee looks at, the different possibilities. The committee would be made up of people chosen by the facilities committee. That's the way I see it. So, I mean, it can be adjusted any way the committee would like to adjust this. And the idea would be that there be community people involved in this committee, there'd be school board members, there'd be students, we think it's important to have somebody from the high school administration, the district administration, and somebody from the maintenance staff, because of some of the discussion may take, questions may come up. But the suggestion here is that a committee be formed by the Board of School Directors under the, with the recommendation by this committee, the facilities committee, and that the committee be formed as soon as the facility committee and the board thinks it's necessary to form it. The idea would be to look for community people to make suggestions. This would be a committee, and then this committee could ask for could have public meetings and have people from the community come, make recommendations to the committee, and then the committee eventually makes a recommendation to the board. If we used the 2014 date to give the committee time to do some work and to actually perhaps find some funding to do it by next month, probably doesn't work. But at any rate, this is just an overall draft for consideration by this committee. You know, it's nothing set in stone here at all, except nothing really, except that at the end, there should be a recommendation from the committee to the board.
This is given out to us in our board package. Everybody have one? It's one, date 5/3/13, that's one.
That's all.
Okay. Do we get any action on that?
Well, if you want to form a committee, my recommendation would be that this facilities committee discuss this. And I believe it should be a committee, this committee should be approved by the Board of School Directors at some point. In other words, the structure and the purpose of the committee should be something that's
Like an ad hoc committee.
That's what you're talking, ad hoc committee? And the purpose, you have the goal?
well, the goal is the recommendation.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so that.
I mean, it could be an ad hoc committee if you want it of the board.
It could also be a committee that's from the administration. Remember when we did the banking committee versus an ad hoc committee?
What's the suggestion? Yes.
I just wanted to make one comment with the people that are listed here to be on the committee. In all due respect, a lot of those were on the other committee, so I feel that would be a conflict with those same people, because we already know what they want. What they wanted. That's my personal feeling anyway.
Thank you. Yes.
This is really aligned with the idea that I was suggesting last week, that we should take this as a separate project and figure out what to do. So I like the idea. I think we could flesh out the details a little bit. I think the way it differs, Ruth, is around the second item is the citizens of the BASB community. And I think that's where we would really,
We had citizens on the design
well,
team.
I think we would really decide who that would be.
And might be up to chair.
Whoever that chair would be. This
Yeah,
could
it'd
be
be
an
up to
ad
John
hoc
to appoint the committee.
No, because you're taking it to the school board of directors.
No, because, no, if you establish that in that
I
out
thought it
committee.
was board of directors.
Be coming
Picks the
from,
people.
it would be coming from this committee, I think,
Who picks the people to be on the committee?
It depends on whether the committee is a committee organized by the administration or a committee organized by the board.
Okay.
And this is just a guide, right?
This is just a guide.
Okay, now,
Suggestion.
I have one real problem with it. We have been fighting and arguing and discussing for several months now for an answer get this year, but we won't be at a committee until next June to give the answer. I think that should be moved up
Be
considerably.
whatever you want it to be.
Yeah,
Change the date.
I think, you know, I think there's a lot of pressure to get an answer about what to do with that building before we get too far down the road.
Don, I had heard Mr. Barnhart say that we need to know by June 13th, so
Right.
when the bids go out, so that we can get the best possible.
That we can't get a committee together
Right.
and get
In
that
short
finished by
period of
June
time.
13.
Yes.
Unless it's a carbon copy of what we've been doing. And we don't really want that, we want other input. So what do we do, take this to the board, suggest bringing up the board meeting for forming this, an ad hoc committee or something? We can't do it at this meeting,
Well,
You
my
know, you can
suggestion,
talk about the structure and.
yeah.
I guess my suggestion is if we're looking at doing this and we do want this input and the possibility of it being a part of the current project that we're working on, that we need to set some timelines. And this committee needs to make some recommendations regarding that.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I was just wondering what people think about it being led by the board versus the administration. I want to hear others' thoughts on that. Those that have opinions.
Well, my thinking is it should be the administration, because they're the ones that would be working it, either for school use, or if we went to the option A, where there's other uses. They would still report to the board, so we're still overseeing. Unless I misunderstood your question.
That was my question.
Yes, sir.
I think it should be the board because we all live here, we're gonna be paying for this. Half the administrators don't even live here. This all involves a lot of money at the end, and it's been pushed, pulled, prodded, talked about. We still don't know what we're doing. I wanna use it for what it was built for, education, so, you know, administration doesn't want that, so. And we're paying the bill, people that live here.
Yes, Joe.
I agree with Bruce. Even if the administration did it, we'd have to approve it. So I think we should be doing it.
That's good.
I'm sensing that the concern is who would be on the committee. And I think that that could be a collaborative effort from the board and the administration, talking about who would be on the committee, that would be able to best represent all the areas that are listed there. And I don't, you know, I think that we're going to need administration's help if it's a board, a committee done by the board. I don't know, my preference would be the administration headed up, and that the board and administration have input on how it's organized, the timelines, and who's on the committee. But that's strong.
I was reading the committee proposal here, and every one of the items was a member except for citizens of the community. So it's possible to have several citizens with different aspects of the community on this committee, and it wouldn't necessarily give the school board or us the ability to override the majority.
I guess one of my questions, because so much of the time spent on this project has been dialogue, back and forth, very opposite views on this building. So the purpose needs to be very, very clear on this committee, no matter who's on it. And there does need to be people that would be working to a collaborative end, and a time structure in place, or the committee's not worth setting up. If it's just going to be a committee that's going to be spinning their wheels and not being able to come up with a collaborative recommendation, then I don't see it as a positive thing.
Any other questions or comments on the
Well, I would like
proposal?
to add, it seems like there, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, there doesn't seem to be anyone representing our professional staff on
School
administration.
administration, yeah, okay.
There's no professional staff representing.
Let me say this again, it's a discussion item.
Right, well, I just said I
This
would.
committee can add however
It
many
should
you
be
like,
on.
it's completely up to you. It's simply a draft.
Correct, I'm just saying that I would like to add that to the list.
I'd like to add a union member to the list.
What?
Union member.
Well, it could be, all right, we'll do that.
Professional staff wouldn't necessarily need a union, so.
I consider our teachers professional staff.
So do I, but so I consider some of the others professional staff also. Some other people. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna argue over words.
So, I do think that, I agree with Mrs. Simmons, that it's gotta be a collaboration, I think of leadership between the board and the administration. We're gonna come to a board to approve it in the end anyway. I don't really have a strong feeling about who leads it. Is it an ad hoc committee of the board, or is it a committee of administration that keeps on? But I think we need to decide that.
I think what we're saying is if we authorize the administration to proceed with this thing, they are expected to give the board proposals of where it is and what happens. And we would have input at our board meetings on the progress or lack of progress made by the administration. I think they're in a better position to answer this thing, but I still want public involvement, and I think it's more important to get the proper people than the title. But the title gives a variance of abilities. Yes.
I do too, although I want to make sure that it's effective. And I think one thing that works pretty well is our board committees, where we have an administration person and a board committee person working together. And those two would be determining how we structure this, who's on it, what the purpose is, how you run the meetings. And I think if we take that jointly, that joint responsibility, I think that would be the best way for it to happen. I'm not sure how we define that then, in terms of things we've done before. But that would be my suggestion.
Yes.
I'm sitting here listening, because this is one of those, you know, so often I sit here and I think you could flip a coin, and it's this way, tails that way. It just seems to me that the administration has given us their understanding of what we should do with the building. They did not consider the old building. I think we're the ones that are saying, as a board, we need to really look at this old building for whatever purpose it can have for this community or for our school. So to me, I like when you said that, those words that kind of struck a chord in me. I think that's possibly a better way to look at this, because the administration, they're gonna go spearheading, if we go with the 4 academy structure, that's where their heart and mind, they're thinking in that direction, not so much over here, if the building is not part of that academy structure. Because I think we're not, at this point, that's not what we were looking at. So I would agree too, that it seems like the board member and then someone from administration, it's kind of like Dr. Musso and I worked together on that, and many of you worked with an administrator. That to me seems, but that the board should be the one to really work with this committee. You know, I think the board members should really, you know, we should say, okay, here are some people, you know, that should be on this committee.
I have a question. When you were superintendent here, we had several committees. What were they? Were they administrative committees? I don't think they were ad hoc through Gale, or I can't really remember, you know, because we had some very working, strong committees that came up with very good recommendations that went to the board.
We had a committee on special education that had board members, I think.
Right, and grade reconfiguration.
Yeah, and several committees that had 3 board members on it, that had a number of other people.
Right.
And
Throughout the district, I mean, there
Yeah.
were professional staff, administrators, community members.
They were fairly large committees.
Yes, they were.
And we had parents on the one committee, the special ed committee. We had a number of parents of special ed students on that committee. And I don't think we had any, I know we did have ad hoc committees, I think for Act 30.
Act 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have one,
before
right, you did.
Act 50.
Well, that was recommended by the
Right.
state, as an
Right.
except I don't know.
But I don't think we had any other ad hoc. I was only here for
So they
7
were
years.
basically administrative committees set up with the board
There were 3
partnering?
board members on all those committees.
Right.
As I remember. 3 board members, and then I guess we worked together and had other people get involved depending on their area of what they were. I mean, for example, the special ed committee, we had special ed teachers and parents of special ed students.
Right.
That one I remember met in here pretty frequently. I'm not remembering all the other committees.
Well, we did a grade
Grade
reconfiguration
re- yes, that's right.
committee, and that, there were quite a few members on that one also.
I get the feeling that the majority of the board members would like to have the board handle this building program. Can I have a show of hands? Who would be in favor of the board doing it?
I guess I would look at, you're
Majority
saying,
of it. Okay, we'll arrange for the board to pick up this responsibility under our president.
Thank you, John.
okay, and I guess I have some questions moving on
Well,
with
we can do that when we do that with our meeting.
No, this is, in my mind, this is primary as to where this project goes.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
You know, because
Keep
if,
in mind that the board is in favor of the board handling it. So if your suggestions are getting away from that, they'll be out of order.
all right, no, I'm not, I'm just saying with what EI presented this evening to us, and if we are looking at a different use or a school use or other use for the old building, as far as project cost, as far as bids, everything else, to me, this committee is of primary importance. If we're looking at, if the committee, let's just say for an example, the committee comes up and says, well, the bottom line is we want $7.1 million spent on this building to do this, and we would like it bid at the same time the rest of the project is.
And that would be
And the
that would
board
be,
agrees with this committee, then that's a part of that process.
right, if the board agrees, but the board will be developing that, and when it's presented for a board vote, if the board votes in favor of it, that's the way it will be.
I understand that, but I'm just saying the time frame as to when we're bidding this project, the high school, the 4 academies, and when we would come to a recommendation to the board from this committee, might tie together.
Oh, I think it does. Yes,
When you give me a job, I want you to do that right away.
okay. So do I.
As you all know from today's emails. Anyway, if we're going to establish this committee, and if the date that the committee has to be back to the board is by June of this year, our last board meeting in June is what date? That gives us a very limited, like a month for the committee to get up and running. So if that's the case, then
But we could
tonight, we
we
need
could
to.
delay the construction also, I think that was mentioned.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, that's
No,
all.
I'm, okay. No,
No, I think we're jumping way ahead of ourselves,
think so,
because
yeah.
the committee hasn't decided anything yet. And if you wanna go the worst scenario, you can assume that, but as it is right now, it's not been supported.
Right.
So, my point to this committee right here is, if you want this established, our next board meeting is May 14th. We would have to have all the committee members selected and have some parameters of what our expectations were. And that would, I'm assuming, would have to come from this committee to take to the board on the 14th to say, all right, this is what the recommendation is, that this committee be formed. These are members we can have on this committee. The committee needs to have so many meetings to establish their recommendation, a minimum of so many meetings. And they need to have the recommendation to us by a certain date. Very similar to what the ad hoc committee did for the redistricting. That was well organized, and that was done within a shorter period of time, like 3 months, I think. Maybe 4 months. We have 1 month.
Now, 1 month is desirable, but in my opinion, it's not adequate.
No, I
We
don't think
can't
it
do
is.
anything in a
I
month.
don't think it is either, so therefore we won't be able to, we have to realistically say, we won't be able to include this in the bid, what we want. It's possible that we might, but it's very improbable.
I vote against it.
Okay,
I
we
would
know
like
that.
to
We know
have
that.
this input coming through the
You voted
project.
against it before. I didn't think you changed your mind.
Okay.
So the expectation then, I'm hearing, is that on our board meeting next Tuesday, we will talk about this committee, and board members will be appointed, and they'll have to come back to the board with their plan.
Right, I don't think, oh, yeah. I don't think at the next board meeting, we would need to list all the
No.
members.
It would just be the
That
board,
would-
the board
Yes.
committee, and then the board committee would meet and establish that and all the parameters, what they were planning to do when they'd accomplish it, and how many meetings it would take, and recommendations for people on the committee.
I think at the next board meeting, if we just establish the core of the committee
Okay,
and the marching orders,
all right,
what is
we
expected,
can do that.
then we can move on from there.
Okay.
And can you put that on the agenda?
We can put that under the new business that I keep adding next to old business, because we have no new business items.
But if we do that then, Gwen,
Yes.
and it, no
reviewed.
action, just.
No, it's appointment.
Okay, that would be fine.
It's appointment. We're going to establish this committee, the 3 board members are, and 3 of you should talk to me about your desire to be on that committee.
I'm only allowed one vote, right?
Did you say you want to be on the committee?
No.
Is that what that
I'm
was?
just wondering how many can vote against. Okay, I think that's a reasonable approach for this, but we do need that. And I think when the committee gets together, we ought to talk about bettering that June 14 date. That should be one of the first things the committee should be discussing. We should put more of a challenge on ourselves to get this moving.
Okay, just to clarify what you just said, Mr. Crosley, that means that you're not looking at this committee providing input prior to the current project going out to bid.
I don't think I said that.
No, you didn't say that.
I know it's gonna be difficult if we do that, but I'm not saying we can't do it.
Okay.
What's that?
We'll be calling a special board meeting.
Well, I'm sure that committee will have special meetings. Probably more than the public is willing to attend. Okay, any other question on the 3-story alternatives? Next, yours?